Okay, we're back. We're here for the Rearview presented by BF Goodrich, which is interesting because this was exclusively a quarantine product, and now we're here in the person. We've got our popcorn, we've got our hydro flasks. This Rearview is the quarterfinals, 2017 lowers, you versus Carissa.
I have not rewatched this heat in a long time. This was a big turning point heat for me in my career, actually. I feel like Carissa always, I have my best heats against her. I think she just brings the best out in me because if you don't absolutely go off, you won't beat her. So this was sort of one of those times, and I kind of hadn't had the best year, and I was just fired up. I was at lowers where I feel super comfortable. I obviously grew up, surfing out here, and it's kind of my
and you have
wave.
a place down there now, right?
And I have a place down there. I've had a place down there for a while, so I spend most of the time when I'm home all summers. I was fired up.
Yeah, and is that intentional when you surf against Carissa or anyone else? Are you, I want to get the first wave, I want to set the pace?
If you asked Mike that, he would say ideally you set the pace, you get the first wave. I think with Carissa too, it's really important to sort of get up in a grill a little bit. Not that I'm not really naturally that personality. I hate paddle battles and I hate fighting for position and stuff. But I think with her, if you can get a jump on her, it's generally a really good thing. So yeah, this wave worked out nicely for me. It gave me a lot of turns and it had a lot of down the line opportunity. I feel like at lowers sometimes too, you can get really fun medium-sized ones that you often, the sets are obviously always the priority in a heat, but a lot of times you can get ones, about that size, but it gives you a lot of turn time down the way.
And the coping is sometimes better, right? Because those sets sometimes go a little bit wide and it's hard for you to, like, what you were doing there is really accenting your turns. What board were you riding in 2017? Which model? And has your, oh my God, 937 for the first wave? Good start.
The scoring panel's changed since then.
That's good. It's great. But what model were you riding in 2017 and has it changed much between then and now?
I was riding the Rook 15 or just the rookie at this time. And I still ride rookies. So it hasn't really changed a whole lot. I might have been on an epoxy in this heat. I got to see another wave to make sure, but I might have been on epoxy here.
Can you tell just by how you're surfing, or are you looking at the board?
No, I'm just looking how I'm surfing. It looks pretty poppy, and I don't know, maybe I'm a bit older now, so I just don't have the flair. But here goes Carissa. She obviously rides Mayhem, so her boards would have been incredible for lowers. Obviously, Matt being local lowers guy, he owns the lineup out there. This was a nice one.
It is funny how board builders, they've gotten so much better, but for years are just so kind of regionalized specialists. I remember getting some JSs on tour a few years ago that were Parco boards, and they were so concaved out. I took them home and I'm like, I don't think my board goes. I'm sure it's not the board's problem. I'm sure this is entirely user error, but you just compare those to boards made in California just based on the waves, and they're just totally different.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's, it's like if you go to the Gold Coast, a DHD is probably going to work really well. If you go surf Rincon, you probably want Brit to shape every single one of your boards, And so I think for sure, depending on where the shaper's from, it's going to go great in that area. It's the same thing you see with Tokoros in Hawaii.
Right.
But yeah, for me, I've been with Channel Islands forever since I was a little girl, just naturally being from Santa Barbara. And so it's just been really cool to build that relationship with them. And now with Brit, it's been awesome. And I've been on rookies forever. I love that model for the tour.
Now, we hear from some surfers that they will have that exclusive relationship with the Channel Islands or with a Mayhem or with a DH, but they will venture out and try different shapers and different shapes to kind of see how those things feel and take them back to their own shapers. Have you ever done that? Or
yeah, totally. I think that's wise to go and just see what you like and try stuff and sort of make sure you're on the best equipment for you. Personally, I honestly haven't much. I've sort of, especially since working with Brit the last 3 years, I've felt like my board's changed completely. Where before then, I was riding Channel Islands and they were making me great boards, but I was a little more curious of maybe trying some other stuff or seeing what was out there. And then since working with Brit, I just felt like my consistency of my surfboards, the involvement I have in him building my boards, the understanding of it has just grown so much. And now I'm, I don't really second guess if I could be on better equipment. I feel totally confident and comfortable in it, which is a great feeling. That being said, though, I think it's always still just great to even jump on someone else's board and see how it goes and feels. And, surfboard's a never-ending journey of learning what things can do and how it can change your surfing. So
you do see often, especially at the elite level, like when a surfer can zero in with a one board builder or even a singular shaper, they just advance in leaps and bounds. And here you are up again on another right. You want to walk us through the wave?
Yeah, this looks like more of a set wave. I think this might be a really good exchange with me and her. That was the money turn for me for sure. I remember after that turn, a little no claim. I got that wave and then I turn around and Carissa belts this last end turn right in front of me. And I was like, oh, dang. Because I was feeling that one.
Oof.
I was feeling pretty good about my wave. And then I was like, oh, don't forget what she can do. But yeah, that was a nice exchange. It was nice to get kind of a set. Lowers often can get really lowly. I think anyone who's ever watched that event knows or competed in it. The lulls can just sort of kill you out there. So this was a nice heat because we had plenty of opportunity. And yeah, I was feeling just really clicked into my equipment, clicked into the wave. Here's Carissa's. That was a really nice turn. I think majority of her points came from that right there for sure. And I think even if they replay mine, majority of my points probably come from my finishing turn as well.
And you had a really nice second or third turn. Maybe it's this one here, right?
I got lucky on this wave. It kind of ran away from me, but I somehow managed.
Even being able to finish, like it's interesting because like a couple of weeks ago we had the Stab Surf 100 and I was watching Griffin and Kolohe and Ian and it's a different scenario, but I was just noticing like they were like hammering the waves, but just struggling to finish. And I wasn't sure if it was just because it wasn't really a contest. It was a bit of a free surf, but right there, like having the strength to finish that wave after you've made the money turn, like I didn't see any of that in the Surf 100. Do you feel like you surf different between events and free surfs, or do you always try to push it?
No, I do. I think, events, it's like every last little bit counts and you never know. I think just through my experience now, you also just never know how much you're going to win or lose by. So that's just critical. That last tiny little foam climb, if that gives me 0.2 more, that might be the difference.
Yep.
Where in free surfs, I probably just would have done my end turn and straightened out and been good with that. But yeah, I think when someone puts a jersey on, or at least for me, for sure, I just click into a different gear.
So we're about a third of the way through the heat. You've got a 9.7 and an 8.5. Looks like that 9.7 was on your last exchange with Carissa. Carissa put up a 9.77. She's got a 6.33. So she needs a huge score to match your 8.5. There's plenty of time left. Like, what's going through your brain at this point against a competitor and a surfer, I guess, just like Carissa?
It's Carissa, so she'll probably get the score she needs, and I need to better my 8.5. I think that's constantly across the board. When I'm in a heat with her in any situation that, okay, you're surfing well. Obviously at this point, I'm doing great with my scores and I'm feeling good and I'm surfing well. I'm putting it together. But she also just dropped a 9.77. So, with 3 turns. So I think I'm constantly just aware of her and what she's doing and thinking that she's going to get the score.
And is there a defense offense approach for you in heats? I mean, at this point, I guess in particular, are you thinking like best defense is a good offense, I need to improve the 8.5? Or are you thinking like I need to prevent her from getting a wave that's going to get like an 8?
I think I'm more the offensive thinking of just I'm going to better my 8.5. But that being said, I can try and fake her into a wave, and I will for sure. Everyone's going to try and do that and make her look at something or make her paddle for something. She's actually really good at doing that, to me on the flip side. But I think always constantly, it's just all you can control is your surfing and what you're doing. So that's what I'm going to focus on, is just bettering, and dropping an 8.5, which is a tall order, but I think you just got to draw confidence from other things in the heat. Like I've got a 9.7, so that's out there for me to potentially maybe get again.
Once you have scores this high, are you looking left at all on a day like today at lowers?
I never look left. No, I think so. I think sometimes too the judges just like to see some variety. So I've gotten 2 really nice scores on a right. So if I get a left here, I don't remember if I do or I don't, but sometimes that's just good to switch it up. If you belt to left, they'll just think, oh, cool, that was nice to see something different. That's a bit more flary or whatever. So I think it's good to remember that. It looks like Carissa's looking at this wave. She's got priority. This looks like a nice one. This is kind of one of those, oh, that was super, oh, that would have been scary if she made it. She would have maybe been winning this heat.
You mentioned the size at lowers, and something I always like to talk about because people love to bring up the big years, the year Luke Egan won and this and that. And it's like, once lowers kind of gets a few feet overhead, it's kind of not the best event to watch. Like 3 to 5 feet is kind of, in my opinion, the most rippable you'll see.
Yeah.
Because everyone feels free to push it and go as fast as they can.
I totally agree. I think that would have been so nice. I think you want it 3 to 5 foot range. Exactly. That's it. Maybe 6 foot. And then you're done. Once it's really big, I've surfed it on Hurricane Maria. I want to say it was quite a few years ago. Mike and I went and surfed it. And there was so many wash throughs, the occasional really good one, but even the best ones were sort of those mid-sized ones. So on a day like today, this is sort of perfect size out there. You can add a few more feet for sure. But this is really playful, fun, kind of classic lowers day. Going to give you a lot of opportunity. It has that nice little crumble on the lip, which makes it really fun, actually. Really good for airs. And the left, it's still not too crazy on the left. So these types of days this is just typical lower trestles in the middle of the summer right here.
Is this one of your...
I think this is a replay of my good wave. I remember this wave, I felt like, gosh, I knew that the second wave she was going to go on because you could see the set coming. And I feel like I remember taking off and thinking, oh no, it's sort of stretching out on me. I have to make it to that end section. But if I just do a floater, that's not really going to get much of a score. So I remember being really pumped that I got those 2 sort of turns in before that final one, because I stood up and I was like, shoot, I should have waited, but it ended up working out.
Well, I mean, especially too, and we're comparing both turns here, like, if you, had only done this turn and it comes in at like a 6 or a 7 and that, and you turn around and you paddle and you watch her kind of drop that hammer on the 977, you're like, oh crap, I really needed to do a few more things there to take advantage.
Totally. It's a huge confidence thing. I couldn't agree more. It's sometimes watching your competitor, like I'm constantly obviously aware of what my competitor has for scores and what they're doing in a heat, but oftentimes too, or I've just learned more over the years for my own self, is just trying to almost tune that out a bit, or just not taking negative. If they get a 9, it's so easy to be like, dang it, I'm on the back foot now. Or even if you have another 9, it's like, shoot, they've just closed the gap entirely. Where I feel like the way I'm trying to start to look at it is, if my competitor gets a really good wave, it's like, okay, sick, there's really good waves out here. I know if I get that wave, I can get a really nice score, and that's out here. So that's a positive. Mm-hmm. So I've tried to kind of change that mindset, but it's never good to see Carissa hammer a wave in front of you.
Well, so that's such a good point. Like, and I think it relates to a lot of people free surfing too, because I'm like the worst, like, prairie dogger in the lineup. As soon as anyone goes, I'm watching the whole wave. Yeah. And then I'll watch like a lot of like CT's heats, obviously. And I noticed that most of you just won't even pay attention. You're like, I don't want to see that person blowing the fins out the back. I'm focused on my own deal. Like,
yeah, I stopped paying attention a long time ago. I'll pay attention to the score, and if I'm paddling out and see it, then I'll pay attention, but I rarely turn around and watch them surf, because if they catch the first wave, it's probably a set and there's a wave behind it for you to focus on and be in position for. And if you're turned around looking at them sidetracked, it just, you got to focus on yourself.
It's also better for like photos and videos, because for sure I would be the asshole in the back with like a weird look on my face while someone was like blasting the tail on the wave. So me just going, oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if it's like a buzzer beater and they take off and need a score, I can't not watch it. Oh shoot, I got to see what they're doing. But yeah.
When,
like another little wave coming.
When you're down in San Clemente, are you part of the electric bike posse?
I am. I'm part of the Murph bike posse when I'm down there. That didn't really.
Oh, jeez.
That was a nice wave. It kind of this one you can tell the wave's a bit more facey. It's like that little bit bigger. But it was more like I did those 3 open face carves, and then the finisher, it was less down the line.
That's got to come in higher than your 8.5.
I think
like,
so.
It was like 3 massive turns.
Yeah, I think that'll go 9 from
like
memory.
So in that moment, are you hesitating a little bit because you got priority and you're like, I don't know if this is the wave I should use, or can you tell you're like, no, this is going to be one I'm going to hammer?
Yeah, I feel like it lowers if it's a set when it's this size. Like clearly, I'm looking down the line, and that wave has a nice wall in front of me. So I think you got to just pull the trigger and say, okay, I'm going. This wave's got 8 points or more on it just as a wave if you surf it right. So I'm not going to let her have that chance. That's for sure.
Wow.
Yeah. And then she got this one behind it, which a lot of times the second wave it lowers is actually better too. When there's this little bit of wind out there, the first wave will sort of clean it up, and the second wave often, if you have second priority, it can work in your favor for that, because you feel obligated if you're looking at a nice lowers wave and you have priority to take it, because you can, like I just took the first wave and that was a really nice wave. But a lot of times that second wave is just really groomed and looking nice.
987.
There we go. I score the heat.
So sorry, your ripping interrupted our conversation on electric bikes. So you've got one. So you do the electric bike deal down there.
Yes, I've got one. Like a Snip's so happy right there. He doesn't smile on camera.
There's Thomas too.
Oh, there he is. He doesn't look as happy with me. Yes, I'm part of the electric bike crew. The Murph bike guys are super awesome. They've kind of hooked a lot of the surfers up with electric bikes, and it's pretty fun because my little condo, I have a condo down by the pier, and I don't even have to get in my car to drive to the parking lot. I can just go from my condo directly to lowers and back off one charge easily. I could probably do it twice off of one charge, and so it's pretty fun. You get a little warm up. Make sure to wear your helmet. Those things are dangerous. They fly.
It's, one of those things where it's like the older you get very firm reminders of it. And I grew up down there, and we'd always just walk the trail, and it's like, it's a nice walk, and it's like 20 minutes, and it's like, yeah, no problem. And I was going down to visit my parents a lot last year, and I would be like, okay, well, I'm gonna like take the morning and go surf lowers because I'm down here. And like I remember the first few times just getting everyone just blowing past me, and I'm like, and the first few I'm like, that's okay, like they're fortunate, that's fine, like I'm walking, it's okay. And then after a while I'm like, I'm definitely a dinosaur. Like I did not with the program at all.
Nobody walks, Dave. Nobody walks.
I know, it's crazy.
It is. There's, I think on crowded days now, I saw a photo recently, there's like 150 bikes just lined up down there. So yeah, it's a thing for sure.
I'd give him a plug on the podcast to be like, to try to get one. But I mean, we just write it back and forth to the podcast. Yeah. How many boards do you bring to an event like lowers, like in your quiver, in terms of like, okay, I'm coming down from Santa Barbara, I've got 5 boards in play, 15 boards in play that I might use throughout the event?
Yeah, I mean, lowers is kind of a different event than what I would probably generally bring, say, when we're going to Australia and we have 3 totally different waves we'll be surfing in over there. So lowers, where I'm in California, I know I can get a new board if I need it or if something breaks really easily. I still probably, though, have 8 to 10 boards, all pretty similar. I mean, lowers, you're probably not really going to ride anything over a 1-inch step up ever, unless it's the biggest swell of all time. So everything's generally, I've just got a ton of I ride a 5.8 as my normal shortboard. So generally just probably about 4 5.8 squash tails, and then 4 5.8 pintails, and maybe a 5.9 in there if it gets solid.
How many do you leave in your locker room, since we're looking at the women's locker room?
I never leave them overnight. A lot of people leave their boards overnight, but I always take mine. I generally probably have 4 boards in my locker room.
Now, of those 9, do you have your one every time? You're like, this is my favorite board.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like every surfer does, though.
I think so too. But I want to know, like, why you think that, like, why do you think that one stands out for you?
I think it's just personal preference. You know, when you get on a surfboard and you know it's the one, it's the magic board. I think anyone who surfs has experienced that, where they get their favorite board and they're like, oh, this is the one. And so I feel like too, especially being on tour, when you find, or if you get the one in that quiver, a lot of times I won't ride them in my free surfs. I'll just kind of save them for events because you want them to stay fresh. And if you ride them in free surfs and events, they're going to be thrashed pretty quickly. So generally, if I find a really good one, I'll just keep it on ice and kind of ride out my warm up and then in the heat, you know.
I would be terrible at that. I would be like, anytime I felt bad in the water, I'd be like, it's because I didn't have the good board.
Yeah.
Like, it's a nightmare.
Except for this year, I've been riding all my good boards every day. I'm like, I don't have an event. This is great.
That's perfect. Well, it's funny too. Like, I can't wait to get just on the quantity question too, like Jordy Smith on the podcast, because I remember his first event at Snapper Rocks, and I was going to bring this up before because he hadn't landed on a singular shaper when he was a rookie. Mm. And I remember visiting him like before the event started at the Rainbow Bay Apartments. I don't know how many boards he had, but it was reported 110, and I believe it because it was just like 12 board quivers from like 10 different shapers because he was like the it guy. He still is the it guy, let's face it, but like he was like the it guy and everyone wanted to work with him. And I was like, how would you decide what board you were going to ride? Like, that's bananas.
Yeah. Sometimes I think that's valid when guys get too many boards. It's like, okay, you need a lot of boards and you need to get through boards and try stuff and you need backups of the good ones and this and that. I get it. But sometimes, like, sorry, Jordy, you don't need 110 boards. Like, ever. But yeah, I think it's maybe a lot of superstitions. Like, it's my biggest fear to get to an event and be missing a board, or like going to West Oz is the hardest because you need everything from your 5/8 to 6/8. I've ridden a 6/8 in a heat at Snap or at Margs, excuse me. Not at Snapper. This is a replay.
Yeah. I think this is the heat recap, right?
I think that wave got me going. I mean, my first wave was good, but that one got me super psyched. And then seeing Carissa do this turn in front of me, generally when someone does that, I get more fired up because obviously she was on. So yeah, I feel like whenever she's surfing really good, it kind of pushes me to, really step outside of my comfort zone and kind of just go for it a bit more.
Now, you mentioned that this was a really important kind of turning moment for you, just performing like this and surfing against Carissa this way. And you'd had, I think you finished 16th the year before, 2016.
Yeah.
And then injury. And then you said you started slower this year. But this, you could really kind of pinpoint and say this probably set you on your title contention trajectory for the next, until the present, basically, right?
Yeah, it did. I think my injury in 2016 was pretty, injuries always kind of make you grow, especially as an athlete and just having time off. And then 2017 was just sort of weird. I had a weird start, and I actually started working with a sports psychologist not too long before this event. And I remember I sort of started implementing everything I had worked on with him at this event, and it really started to click, and it just gave me so much confidence. I think from here we went to Europe, and I don't know who I had in the final, but I made the final in France. That was really nice, that turn. And yeah, it's crazy how one event can give you so much confidence, and you can just ride off of that as a surfer. It's the same thing as if you kind of get in a rut and it's really hard to get out of it. Same exact thing as if you just have some small things click. For me personally, in my experience, I can only speak from, but it really just gives me something to ride on and go with. And so yeah, this year was just a huge learning curve of how I want to compete, how I want to carry myself, and just having fun and enjoying it, but also being super tenacious and focused and figuring all that out. And I felt like this event was the first time I really tapped into that perfect balance of everything. And yeah, just sort of from there, I've just been learning and growing and trying to improve. And I've been super happy with just the consistency. I think I'm really proud of since this year, because before this 2017, the heat that we're watching now, I felt like I finished in 7th so many times, or 6th once or twice as well. And I was just stuck there and couldn't get consistent results. I'd have the odd final or 3rd or whatever. I felt like this event, I just clicked into something and kept going.
I think like surfing's really like that, and like a lot of people can relate to just things being unlocked, you know, because it's like your experience as a surfer, like the aperture just gets expanded so much sometimes where you're like, now I can go down the line, you know, like, and your whole world changes, you know, and you're like, now I can do a cutback, or like, and you're like, and there's almost no going back in a lot of ways. So like, it seems like it's similar to that. And like, you put a performance in like this in such an important heat against such a high quality surfer. And it's like, well, I don't go backwards from here. You might still get into ruts, as you said, but like your body and your mind knows like, no, I'm here now, you know, and I can establish myself.
You just understand what you're capable of. If you beat Carissa, who's, you know, incredible surfer, the best in the world, then you know on your day that you can, you know, beat her. And I think that confidence is huge. And it's same with winning my first event. I mean, I won an event as rookie, but then I didn't win for like 6 years or something. And so like having a breakthrough event at Snapper, it's like, you just realize you can do it all of a sudden. And sometimes that's all it takes. And it's a shame that it takes having to actually do it to realize you can do it. Because if I had the mindset before then and realized you can win at any time, anywhere, doesn't matter the conditions, it's surfing, then I probably would have maybe won an event sooner. But it is wild how just one event win or one event heat can put you on such a great trajectory.
Totally. And I mean, as someone who, I mean, compared to a lot of the other surfers, started arguably later, you know, than a lot of other surfers, I think it must be one of those things where it's like, no, I can do this now, and people didn't think I can do it, or I didn't think I could do it, or maybe you did. And now I can do this, and now I can do that. And it's as sort of just this leveling up for you that's never gone the other way.
Hopefully it doesn't go the other way.
Now you're on the lineup. I mean, it's like...
I made a team.
I mean, who cares about a world title or the Olympics? Like, you're here.
I know. Yeah. It's hard too, because I don't want to say the better you get, but the closer you get for me to a world title, like my last 2 years finishing second, then finishing third, it's like, you're getting so close that there's that one last spot to gain, which is so much to gain of winning world title. But then if you don't finish second, you have also just so much to lose and so much room to go down. If I go back to a 7th in the world year, that's still incredible, obviously, for, you know, anyone that's on tour. It's amazing. But it's I think you have to adjust your mindset of just, you know, it's the smallest margins between first, second, third.
Well, I was going to say the smallest margins too, especially on the women's tour, because the talent just across the field is so high, and there's just not many spots, you know, like, so it's being in the top 3 is something. Being at 6th or 7th, as you said, there's not a lot of daylight like in the rankings, but it's just an entire other space almost, you know, and it's such a weird one. Yeah,
it is. I don't know. I'm just learning to focus at task at hand, and as long as I do my best, then that's all I care about.
Do you like that? Well, if so, subscribe over there and then watch more videos over there, and then tell us your favorite videos down there. It's a 3-step process. Do them all now.